Hello, Brittany Forman. I'm so glad to have you here today. And I want to tell our listeners a little bit about why I wanted you on PCC Local Time, and in particular, the APMM series. Our conversation today is really going to be directed towards municipal managers, elected leaders, and anyone thinking about transformation in their towns, their townships, their municipalities, and media by choice, but also just through, it seems, other circumstances has really transformed over the last few decades. I want to talk about why you are really well suited to this particular place. So we're going to talk about how you came to media and how your skill set matches with what they're going through right now. And then we're going to go through a slide presentation you created for another session we did together with a group of Danish managers. You were explaining how your sense of place was created or sustained, and how you strive with your borough council to find ways to preserve that character, even as the town becomes a more desirable place to live. If you could refresh my memory, I've had a chance to work with you on a few projects, so I've had a taste of media and I can visualize a lot, but I particularly am interested in how your skill set was meshed with what the borough was going through at the time of your hire. We talk a lot in the field about right fit, and it seems to me like you were the right fit for this borough at the time. So tell me a little bit about when you came in and where you came.
Sure. And thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate this forum to have the discussion. I do think that it was an interesting path towards management. And it was one of those times where we fit well together for the needs of the borough at the time. My background is in community and economic development. I've been in and out of government for the last 15 years, started at federal level at HUD, focused on community development. From HUD, I went off to work in other local government, in city government, city of Norfolk, and was in their planning department for a while. I worked for their mayor for a while directly, and got to see the legislative side of Norfolk. When we decided to move back home, my husband got out of the Navy, we moved back home, and I actually did private sector and went to work at a consulting firm, an economic consulting firm. And so got to kind of beef up the economic development piece of it, working with municipalities across the country, actually, but a lot in the Pennsylvania area, and doing economic development plans. I was we're helping with budgeting and fiscal management of distressed communities. It was a really great program, really great job experience. I was very happy there. I wasn't actually looking to leave, and one of the council members reached out to me about this position because they knew me because my firm did the economic development plan for media. So we did that back in, I want to say 2017. I was a resident at the time, but I was working at this economic firm. We won the job and did the development plan here. There was a lot of participation by the residents. They adopted the plan. They started working on the plan. And then years later, this position as the manager came up, and the council member reached out to me and was like, I really want you to think about this. And that kind of started me on this path. I've been here for about 5 years now, and I absolutely love it. It's great to be able to live and work in the same place so that I can see the change we are trying to implement.
Right. And you have the challenges to match. So you've got it all there, a lot going on. Yeah, it's a very interesting place to be. We're going to open up into this slideshow, and it is something that you created for a meetup between Danish managers and some U.S. managers. The U.S. managers at this session presented these portraits of how they create a sense of place where they're at. This is media's presentation. We've decided we're going to kind of go back and forth, so I may interrupt you a little bit to ask you some more questions. We need to try to also describe what we're looking at, because if the listeners are not going to know what we're looking at. But I encourage everyone to go to the YouTube channel, the Muni Square YouTube channel. I'll put a link in the show notes so that you can actually see what we're looking at. Let's make sure we have a good description of what we're looking at.
Yes, that's a good point. Alrighty. let's see here. Just going to take a minute to pull this up. Here we go. Can you see the screen?
I can see it. Yes.
All right. We already talked about me. I love public service, love local government. And for me, it's all about tangible things and trying to help build vibrant communities. When you invited me to have that conversation about senses of place and building community character with the Danish crew, that was really interesting. I really enjoyed that.
I'm going to interrupt you here because you have that icon. So that first slide and this slide as well has that everybody's hometown, which is, I don't know if it's a motto that has been there for a long time, but that's a great motto. In the center of this icon, the trolley system, the trolley car coming right down the center of your town, which right away sets a tone.
Yes, absolutely. So this logo, which you just described with the trolley and everybody's hometown on it, is a core value. I'm going to share a little bit about media's history and how we became a community with a strong identity, talk about some of the present day challenges and share some of the things that we're wrestling with, and then talk about how we're trying to preserve our identity as we move into the future.
And you have to also explain this sign here, America's first fair trade town. And are we looking at, I'm not used to coming in this side of the building.
This is coming from the west side, going east on Baltimore Avenue. And we were America's first fair trade town. There is an organization out of England that essentially, there's a number of criteria that you have to, adopt and pass as a resolution through your town council or township commissioners or what have you. And it basically is just that we are trying to make sure that as much as possible, the exchanges and the goods and things that we're selling and things that the ethos is that, everyone can earn a fair living while producing these goods. So that's what fair trade's all about. It's interesting.
I also want to just point out for the listeners, and I think it also helps to describe the town character. In this picture, you see row houses with front porches and steps, and you see lots of trees along the street as well. And I don't know if you would say this is typical for a large part of the borough, this sort of row house, or would you say it's a real mix of residential structures?
Our housing stock is very mixed. Row houses, single family houses. We have multifamily apartment buildings, which is actually what's on the right-hand side here. And that is definitely one of the things that makes it's very eclectic kind of housing and media, but it's wonderful. It pulls together in a wonderful way that people are really in all stages of life are interested in being in media because of it. Let me continue. We're a suburb of Philadelphia. Media has what I call good bones. The area was first settled when William Penn came here in 1682. The borough itself was incorporated in 1850, and it was what is called a planned town. So it was built with this grid pattern. It was built with transportation. We have regional rail, we have trolleys, we have bus routes, and that picture down on the right-hand side is the trolley going down our main street. We have different types of housing and multiple schools. Media Borough is actually a tiny place, right? It's only 3/4 of a square mile. And we have about 6,000 people who live here. Because we are the county seat, during the day, our population swells up to about 12,500. A lot of activity around our courthouse, which is that picture in the top left. We have a very, very busy business district as well.
What I was reading about, by a little bit of my background, if you want to go back just to the slide, I'm going to really annoy you. First of all, you got a movie theater. Is that movie theater a working movie theater right behind?
It is actually, they're going to be bringing back movies to it, but it is actually, the media theater has been performance art. So it's been plays, Broadway theater, that type of thing. I mean, obviously, but high level of theater at that. And so they are actually, I think, interested in having less dark nights, right? When you only always, when you have a show and you have a show season, outside of when those shows are, the theater is dark. And so the kind of new organization of the media theater is interested in having less dark nights, and they're doing things like music now, and they're getting screens to do actual films. It's really cool. It's on our main strip. It's on our main town.
And I think it's also important to say that your trolley is a really good looking trolley. And I read that it's the same structure as the subways in New York City, that the company that actually made, I don't think it was the original, but they came back and renovated it at some point. I think they were put in originally in 1913, but it has an interesting history. These are not tourist trolleys. This is a serious trolley.
And what I learned,
go ahead.
This picture here is actually a red trolley. It's a special trolley. Our
Oh,
trolleys that are typically on State Street are actually white, but they look very similar to that. I like that picture because it had the theater and the trolley in it.
and what I learned right before we got on today, I was asking you about this, and you said that the train system is also accessible. Is that
So
Amtrak or SEPTA?
it
That
is SEPTA. SEPTA's
SEPTA.
regional rail route is right. You can walk from it from town. It's technically in Upper Providence Township, but it's literally like steps from the borough, which
Yeah.
is awesome. So we have the regional rail, we have the trolley, and then we have bus routes
And
throughout the town as well.
yeah, so everybody wants to live here. We haven't even gotten started.
So despite all those good bones, I will say that media wasn't always a vibrant community. In the 1990s, particularly, it had some high crime. There was vacancy in our commercial districts, and our neighborhoods and homes were in disrepair. And so I think it's important to have more than good bones, the good bones being the transportation, the housing, and the
Mhm.
economic activity. You also need people power. It took the leadership of our current mayor, who's retiring after 32 years, Bob McMahon, along with elected officials at the time, to set the vision for the town. He and those elected officials were proactive about economic development. They went out and actively recruited restaurants. They brought Trader Joe's to media. He went up to their corporate headquarters and convinced them they needed to be here. He brought in Fellini's and helped bring in Iron Hill. And, he would go to these restaurateurs in other towns and be like, you have to come see media. So they put in a lot of legwork and got these restaurants, grocery stores, and retail downtown. And they started adding events that would draw people in. They started adding signature events. And it really helped to create this vibrant place where, with our core value that it really can be everyone's hometown.
I wonder if you could just say who they was in the earlier days. I know that you have a recreation specialist. That's part of the work we did, finding out exactly how to label that because she is really a facilitator of a lot of these events. But before she was hired, what was happening for these events to happen? Was it volunteer, downtown groups? Do you know?
For the last like 20 some years, I could speak to back to early 2000s. I am not 100% sure before then. But we have also had a business authority. It's called Media Business Authority, and it is technically established underneath the Municipal Authorities Act. It basically ran a lot of the events in conjunction with the municipal leadership downtown, and it's done that for decades. I would say it was a combination of a lot of people working together, right? I think it was strong leadership from those elected officials. And then it was the Media Business Authority, and they had volunteers that would help them. And it was the business community stepping up and staff stepping up and to pull off these events.
Okay. And I just want to, because I remember from your presentation previously that you will mention something about the parks, but at this time, in these early stages, when the mayor is starting to generate a lot of these events, were the parks, would you describe it as being developed or were they there?
They were very much passive parks and not necessarily places that you would want to spend a lot of time. We have spent a
That's,
lot of money over the last 20 years into making our parks places where you want to spend time.
and I know we'll get back to that in a little bit. Yeah.
As we were talking about, the media today is very vibrant. It's very active and it's an inclusive community when it's got that historic charm. We have over 100 businesses on our main street, State Street. There are 30 plus events that require street closures throughout the year. So like, think about that.
lot.
Like, we're closing our
lot.
main street 30 plus times a year out of 52 weeks
Mhm.
of the year. So it's very active. We host a variety of festivals. We have like a Surf Santa Parade Festival. We have Fall Festival, Spring Arts Festival, Veterans Parade, Memorial Day Parade. We have ice sculpture events. It goes on and on. Our signature event is Dining Under the Stars, which is what this picture is. Every Wednesday from May to September, the restaurants will bring out their tables and their chairs and put them onto the street, and we stop the trolley for 5 blocks. Everyone comes out and eats on the street under the stars. It's a very cool event. We get thousands of people every Wednesday night. We often have other things happening around then, like music on certain street corners, balloon animals for the kids, or our rec department will host a table of games for the kids to play, like while everyone is eating. It's a really fabulous series.
Yeah, Brittany, if anyone has considered doing this in their town, you need to go on Media Borough's site or look at this on YouTube and see what this looks like. It is the image of what you want a dining outside experience to be like in a small town. It's really beautiful. I recall in the session with the Danish managers that they were quite impressed as well. It's a sign of not just a vibrant community, but for those businesses, they know every Wednesday there's going to be this level of traffic through the town that's pedestrian, not cars. So I think that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Great.
So here is pulling up a couple pictures about our parks. It's not just about the commercial district, the State Street area. We are also a strong environmental town, and that has been built into our ethos. We have a number of very strong environmental organizations and advocates who continually push us to be leaders in environmental sustainability. We have 6 parks, 2 playgrounds, and a large pedestrian plaza. And again, we're only 3/4 of a square mile. When you're thinking about community development and how everything is laid out, you really should take a larger regional look at everything around you. We have access to Ridley Creek Park and Rose Tree Park, which is Delaware County's largest park, just right outside the borough. There are these regional systems of parks nearby, even within the borough, whether it's a small pocket park, which is this little picture on the left-hand side, which is called Diamond Park. And then you see this Glen Providence Park in the bottom right corner where it's just a big grassy area, hilly area, people out lounging. That is the Delaware County's oldest park. And that's located.
And what is that structure back there in the back of that scene?
It was,
I bet it's a utility.
WPA.
Okay.
Structure. There used to be, there's nothing in it underneath it anymore, but there used to be, there might have been restrooms there at one point. I'm not sure what was in it, but anyway, it's a beautiful wall structure and actually could qualify for some historic if we wanted to go that route, historic designation. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you talk about regional systems, I think it's an excellent point. When you're planning your parks, you're thinking about what is actually around. I don't know if you were also alluding to connecting them. Are there ways that you can walk from a media walk area and then link up to another park area in another municipality?
They are not right now, but there has been kind of planning discussions with the county itself. There was this idea of the Media Smedley Trail Connector that they were planning on. A number of our neighbors, like we have sidewalks all throughout the borough, again, because we're really focused on that, pedestrian mobility. Some of our neighbors are adding sidewalks now. Definitely an area that we can all improve on in the county. I brought up parks and this environmental idea along with the core central business district. These are all aspects of what have helped make Media Borough a regional destination. People want to come here. We are a community of choice now. They want to shop here. They want to dine here. They want to live here. And particularly, I'm going to switch sides now to housing. Particularly with regards to housing, we have in a way become a victim of our own success. There is a great demand to live in the borough, and that has caused issues with rising housing costs, rising rents, and rising commercial rents as well. So the pictures we're looking at is, some single family homes on the left, and some row homes, which are very common in the borough in the bottom right. And then that on the top right is a luxury multifamily dwelling rental apartment. And that was one of our newer ones that came in. It's beautiful.
I've never seen anything quite like it. So would you describe, like, you say it's multi-family?
It's apartments, multi-family housing unit.
Yeah, but it would be inside, have some feel to it, kind of like spaces where you could meet. I see there's a deck up top that looks like it has the
they have like game rooms, they have like a kitchen area, they have this beautiful, it's what you would see in luxury apartments in any large city. I used to live in DC, I lived in Norfolk, in Philadelphia, like this is they have a pool actually, and it's beautiful. A lot of common spaces, areas that are very nice, high end.
And it's a new build?
It was built in, I want to say 2015.
It wasn't like a renovation because it's
Council
like
had
it has an old character to it, but it's modern.
our council actually set a different zoning district to allow this to be built where it is. I would say that the look and feel of things is important in media. We just recently passed a hybrid form-based zoning code for our residential areas to help make anything built in the future to still have to still kind of conform to the way that things look and media is very eclectic, which is the great thing about it. It's not like everything has to look this one way, but it's important for us as we have new people coming in and new housing, we don't want it to be completely out of character. So, yeah.
Nice.
So let me keep moving on here. I will state that our first $1 million home went on the market about 4 years ago. Media has typically been a very affordable town. We have more rental units than housing, actually. We're 60% rental and 40 home ownership. And it's always been a place that, has been for those of moderate incomes. As I mentioned, the first $1 million home went on the market. And ever since then, every single family house has been over that now. We're hearing from our longstanding families that their children can't afford to come back to town. Seniors can't afford to downsize and workers can't afford to live here. It's all too expensive and it's a significant issue.
Something I do want to come back to a little bit later. We'll go into that in a little more depth. And while you have a slide here.
So the next slide here is a picture of the cover of our affordable housing strategy. Our Borough Council has been hearing this from the community for years. And about 2 years ago, they decided to focus on finding some housing solutions. We did a study to figure out the data, what's really happening in the housing market. How much can people afford? What can the typical resident here afford? Whether you are a teacher, whether you are a senior, whether you are working in the restaurants, like what on average do they make and what can they afford in terms of a rental, a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom apartment. It was really interesting information. It was very helpful information. And we used that we got in 2023 to actually start to say, okay, this is what the data is telling us and help figure out how to set a vision. In 2024, we adopted the strategy to focus on households. Before I get into the goal, I think it was the vision statement. I just want to read it here. It's that Media Borough will be a place where renters and homeowners can access affordable housing at all stages of life, from residents' first apartments to their starter homes to downsizing in our community. And so just thinking back of what we've talked about it being a place for everybody's hometown, that's literally what we're stating in our vision, right? No matter where you are in your housing journey, we want to make sure there's a place for you here. So we adopted that vision statement, and our strategy is really to focus on households earning under $75,000 a year and senior citizens to help them age in place. So we've been doing a lot about that. We're working to implement some of those strategies from the plan.
I would like to come back to it later, but let's continue for now.
So as people are trying to come here, we are changing, we are growing. And my goal as a leader is to balance that and help preserve the character of the town while we welcome others in. I talk to people about this all the time, that it's really important to remember that communities change. And if they don't change, they die. And so we have to recognize that there's always going to be an influx and an outflow of people. And so I think that, we've been really focused as a municipal manager on finding ways to build connections for the old families and the new families. And we do that a lot through our events with the recreation department. We also invest money in capital projects. A picture on the left side, you see the place called Plum Street Mall, and it was a bricked over pedestrian plaza, and it was just getting a little bit tired. So we went out and got some grants. We got 3 different grants totaling $1 million. And we're nearly finished that project. But on the right, you can see the progress. We're helping to build these places that are the third place. They're neither home or work, but they're a place where the community can gather. And so that's our focus. Creating these places, creating events and programming that people can connect. We're still focused on environmental sustainability and all these aspects. It's really a work in progress.
I think this slide is very interesting, and I would love to have others reflect on it. If we were in a room with planners or community development, like it's actually the original picture. People would probably say, "Oh, we'd love to have a strip like that." But I understand if you look at it, why you said it's tired. And it's amazing to create something that has a vibe to it. It's not really one thing. Is it the picnic tables, the umbrellas? What it is that makes this one special. I wonder what people say. It looks safer to walk through. Maybe it just is it something that's just more inviting so you get more pedestrian traffic? What else distinguishes that space that you create and invest in?
Yeah, this is not the final picture. Even since then, we have a little bit more furniture there, but we it's the lighting, this more modern, like the string lighting. The umbrellas bring this pop of color, right? There's a little bit more playfulness to the design. We had loungers that fit multiple people and they're colorful. On the other side, you don't see there's a fountain structure that is actually the Ridley Creek watershed, because again, environmental sustainability is important. And so it's this really beautiful bluestone fountain on one side. I think we designed it so that people would feel welcome, invited into the space. They feel that they can play in the space and they can linger in the space. And there's actually a lot going on underneath the ground. We have these things called silva-cells, which will help the tree roots grow further so that the canopy of the trees will be bigger. But we added trees and all these planters to give this, to
Wow.
give this area more greenery and more shade. Yeah.
Think neat, like 5 years from now, even what this might look like in a more mature phase.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is where I end the slideshow. I found this picture online, and it's a map of media, which is this like triangle, but for those who can't see, it's kind of cartoonish, and it has in the different areas, different elements that make media a vibrant town. So on one side has the media theater. On the bottom right corner, there's the trolley, and then there's the Veterans Museum, and a little cartoonish picture of dining under the stars. And it's just, all these things that make media great. I love it because it's so eclectic and it's a great representation of media. My final thoughts on building a community of choice and a community with a strong sense of place is two things. One, I think that having the good bones with the physical infrastructure and investing in that is important. And you, just as I mentioned in the very beginning, you still need that leadership with a vision, and you need those places where you can have social interaction. So you have like the infrastructure, the leadership, the people, and the places where you can connect. Secondly, if you're trying to preserve that community identity, it's really like you have to identify what matters most to your community, right? And for us, that is about making it everybody's hometown. But once you have that, you hold on to that and you realize that you still have to change and you still have to adapt. You're going to grow and housing's going to come and go and businesses are going to come and go. But if you hold on to your core value, it's really a way to preserve that identity.
Thank you so much. And that's a great slide as well. You've put together a really wonderful illustration of what it is to be a very small town, but a special place. It really does feel that way. What I think is a tough question, but I want you to put on your professional hat now and speak more generally from your experience. So we're not necessarily talking about media in this question, but it is, I think, on the minds of a lot of managers. You have this very bold vision and you're taking strides in a direction that is really showing great results. But for, in general, towns anywhere that sets a vision like this, can you say in more tangible terms how that vision might be lost? How do you lose a vision like that? What are some things that could happen?
I think vision starts with leadership. As municipal managers, we're just doing our work. We have elected officials who are setting policy and direction. And if they're good, they're setting vision. When you have turnover, even if it's amicable turnover, that can lead to it being stalled because like new elected officials are just trying to figure out how to do the business. That can stall the vision. I think that really if you have effective organization, if you have an effective administration, it can help advance a vision quickly, or it can help
You talk about that. Explain what you mean by that.
knowing what is important to your council, right?
Hmm.
I know my council is focused on environmental sustainability. I know they're focused on affordable housing. So that means that, first of all, I share that with all my senior team. They all know this as well. So when we come across projects, issues, or events or programs that tie in with that, we should know this is something we have to focus on. We have to figure out how to move it forward or find opportunities to move it forward. The recreation coordinator we were mentioning before is an amazing staff member. She has started to take direction from the rec board and council to do more programs and more offerings. Like, she came in and was hearing the feedback that there's not a lot happening for seniors anymore. So they started doing all this senior program, senior dine around. They find restaurants and they move monthly, and it's a pretty, they get a set price, and they can go have a 3-course meal with their other seniors and start to build community at these while supporting their local businesses. We're listening and we're hearing the vision, and we're listening and trying to find opportunities to advance it through like our day-to-day programming.
Yeah. I'd like to pose a challenge within that framework. I come from Hershey, and one of the things that happened early on when I first moved here was I heard about this tension between the town people and the downtown. They got a consultant for the downtown. And the idea was that there would be a lot of conversation around his vision for downtown. To put it mildly, Hershey won out. It's a corporate town, so this is more likely to happen. We are a bona fide tourist town here. But I heard in your presentation this more tourism, people being attracted to the area for whether it's for the Wednesday night dining out or for these events. And what happened in Hershey was that the townspeople said, we want a place that we can go, that we can, it's our places, instead of these what became just sort of corporate restaurants. Every restaurant on the main street, except for a few, you can find in other big towns, other tourist towns. In other words, there was a development piece to it that wasn't really consistent with the vision of the community. So having those leaders, I think it goes back to your leaders being able to really have that influence to say, this is what we do or don't want as part of our downtown. It's becoming very popular. Like parking must be a big challenge for you guys.
Parking is always a challenge in any urban type setting. Media is an inner-ring suburb, so we're neither fully suburban or fully urban, but yes, we have those parking challenges for sure. And I think that tension of like, we want this space for us, and we love it when there are people here, but then we don't really want all the negative impacts related to tourism is real and legitimate. And it's interesting because like sometimes I hear people are like, oh, we never go to Dining on the Stars, it's too hard to find parking. And then you talk to others who are like, I don't need a park, I'll walk up and take a stroll around, even if I'm not eating, just to say hi to my neighbors. There's definitely a tension. One of the things we were focused on with recreation was that we get a lot of press around our events. So like our fall festival that's coming up next month, the next weekend, it's October 5th. We're going to have almost 200 vendors on State Street, and we're expecting about 10,000 people. A lot of people come into town for it from all over. It's really cool. For those sorts of events, our business authority will push it out wide. We'll use the Delaware County Visitors Bureau to push it out, the Tourism Bureau to push it out wide. But then sometimes like our rec coordinator will be doing an event that's really more for residents, and it'll get picked up by some news station, or they'll be like, do you want us to push this out on our listserv? And she's like, no, thank you. We actually don't need you to push this out because this is really an egg hunt for residents, or we have something else that really is just for us to get to know each other. Like we do game nights once a month or things like that. We have a really good communication mechanism to reach our residents. We don't really need help with that. So it is an interesting dynamic of like trying to, figure out what is like more for us and then what is more for everybody.
Yeah. So I think affordable housing strategy is one that everyone would want to know. Is it working? Do you feel hopeful? Brittany, are you picking up any new approaches from your study of other towns? What can you tell people that are experiencing this? I hear this a lot when I work with municipalities, particularly in the eastern part of the state, they talk about this. Like, I couldn't
Yeah,
afford to live here. Is all what
I
they say.
know. I came here 10 years ago, bought our house 7 years ago. And if I was trying to buy now, it would be real difficult. It's changed that fast. But what I'd say is that you need some level of patience because it's slow going. They're doing some really interesting things. I think it's important to recognize that we are a small municipality, so there's only so much that we are going to do and affect in affordable housing, right? You have this entire economy. It's all about supply and demand. A lot of that wave that's happening in our region and in our state is going to happen no matter what. So it's really about what can we do as a small municipality to affect it on the edges that will have some measurable impact. We're focusing on our zoning. Certainly, we talked to our neighbors. A couple of our neighbors in Delaware County have already passed inclusionary zoning laws. We've been talking with them about how they're doing that and how that's working there. That does seem to be one of the low-hanging fruits that we will do. But we're also having these informal conversations with developers, large ones and small ones, about, what would it take for them to come to media and build. The information we're getting is really interesting, and I think it's going to be helpful for us. I think the win at the end of the day would be some zoning changes that allows particular office conversions right now, because everything, with this change with COVID and the change of how folks are using office space right now, it's switching to residential. There might be some zoning changes in the next year or so related to office conversions in a particular area of our town that will incentivize adding a mixed income, units. That would be a win. I think a win would be using our own land. We own a number of parcels throughout town, and some of them might not be being used in the highest and best use. And maybe they could be some sort of affordable mixed income housing or even senior affordable housing. That is a real focus of ours. And I think it'll be very palpable to the residents. So I think that's what success would look like. And I think some innovative strategies too. There's this program we're exploring called home sharing. It's basically where, two people can go into becoming roommates essentially with a legal document, but it's not necessarily money. It's also like responsibilities around the house that they have to do. So you could see a senior living in a very large home paired up with a grad student who needs a place to live but can't afford it. But wants to be here. So there's some interesting things we are exploring. It's early, but I will say one thing. Our council is all on board. Anytime a new housing project comes before them, they just straight up ask them, and, is there any way that you can include affordable in here? Is there any interest in including affordable units? What would that look like? What are the barriers? Talk to us. They're asking those questions. And we have this one developer who is actually from the borough, who, because of those questions, is interested in adding an additional unit and making it affordable just because, council is interested in it. And he also sees the need for it. So it's real small steps. Be patient. If they're doing it in their own towns, you also have to have a long-term plan and a long view of it because it's going to require patience.
Right. I think the communication of that vision has to be constant. I say that because I can call up examples where you have a promising town. So now you have people that will go in specifically buying up the real estate.
Oh, yeah.
So they drive the prices up, but they're not necessarily intending to live there. And there's really nothing that prevents you as a homeowner from selling to somebody who wants to give you $1 million for your home. So what I hear you saying is that by really having a strong message that you're going to find ways, whether it's reclaiming space or rezoning, areas, coming in with these different ideas, that as long as the town is going in that direction, it's not that you're interfering with anybody's ability to sell to whoever they want.
No,
but there's a clear message. This is who we are. So don't expect that there's not going to be mixed use housing near you in the future, because there may be. That's part of our vision.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. We wouldn't be able to change that housing transaction that you just mentioned, nor would we. It's really the housing market, how the economy is doing. People are going to sell in their own self-interest to the highest bidder. That's going to happen. What we're talking about is the land that we own. What can we do with it? And how can we encourage responsible developers to include mixed income housing? For those from media, the feedback we've heard is that they used to be able to live here, and now they're concerned about not being able to live here. They're concerned about downsizing and having to move outside of media. We actually had a comprehensive plan workshop on Monday night. The comp plan is a required document every 10 years that just talks about your land use, the future vision of what it's going to look like, the growth is going to look like in your town. And we had multiple, boards out talking about affordable housing. And we had locations put out about affordable housing, saying, we don't have anything under agreement. This is just all theoretical. But like, could you imagine higher density in this place that would include some market rate apartment units and some for affordable? And the vast majority of folks were putting dots. Yes, strongly agree, strongly agree, strongly agree. I could totally be okay with it there. So it was really encouraging to see. But that's the type of conversations that you have to start having. And that's why I say it's a long view.
I know we're running out of time here. You've been very generous, but I do have a question that I think maybe other managers would be interested to know. If you have, in your conversations with other managers, talked about buying up more land in the municipality, specifically, like if you have a development authority, you have just a little bit more of, I don't know if control is the right word, but you can put some parameters around development. This is maybe my naive understanding, but I understand that like in particularly the townships that have more land, but I think even in the smaller Columbia Borough in Lancaster is a good example. There was like a deserted airfield. It just had been abandoned for years. And the borough bought the airfield. And people thought like, why would you do that? But they're developing, they got like a federal grant for development of drone and they're using that airfield again. It's very interesting to me. Local government can be innovators. I think it's kind of like you were getting at. And I want to hear about that. If managers are having those conversations, like, why not? Aaron Trone, we have a podcast. They took a blighted mall in Lower Allen Township. She said, why not buy it? And they had a development authority and they brought Trader Joe's in. So they were a Trader Joe's story as well. And it just transformed. The whole place came alive again, that mall area.
Local governments can absolutely be innovative in their approach to development, but it just depends where you are. And we are constrained by land. We are nearly 99% built out. Because we're a community of choice, the land is incredibly expensive. So like it would not be a strategy for us to purchase new land because it's so expensive. It's really about what do we own now and what can we do in an innovative way with what we own, or partnerships with major property owners and trying to see if we can bring people together, bring federal resources, state resources, some interesting, developers who are interested in put together some sort of, public-private partnerships, ground leases, different types of strategies to make something happen at the end of the day. But yeah, they can be innovative opportunities.
There's so much to learn from you, Brittany, and also from media. And so it's just been really great to learn more about your borough. And I just wish you all the best. Thank you so much for coming on and talking to us today.
Thank you for having me. It's been fun. Thank you.